88.1 The Burg, your music central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan, your host, and I'd like to introduce our little guest here on the show today. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, hi. My name is Isaac Hinson. I'm on the Burg on Wednesdays during the press pass, and I'm also the editor-in-chief of the Observer.
Yeah, I usually tend to hear you and Ryan Gildersleeve talking on the press pass about 15 or minutes or so before What to Watch Wednesdays. That's actually how we got into contact, and I'm really excited to have you on the show today, man. I've been wanting to have you on for quite a while, and it's the last What to Watch Weekends of the quarter, and now you're finally on.
Well, I'm happy to make it, even if it is at the last second.
I better late than never, as they always say, and it's truly one of the best philosophies out there. I honestly love it. But because we usually talk about movies here on What to Watch Weekends, I wanted to have Isaac on because you were involved in a film of some capacity, and you also love movies. And I think it just makes it easier to talk about them because movies involved in a film. I'm really good at talking because it's so very early in the morning. I am very sorry.
This is the first conversation I've had today.
That is fair. First and the first.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Let's just kind of start real quick here. The big reason that I asked you to be here is because we have our annual CWU film showcase next Friday. It'll be showcasing films made by our Production 6 students. For those of you who don't know how our production series works, it goes production 1 through 6. Usually people are seniors by the time they get to production 6, and it'll be their kind of capstone film, their big, hey, this is what I can do as a filmmaker. Here's what I learned at CWU film program. And because of that, we tend to have big productions. We have a lot of people involved, and the big thing to keep in mind is that Isaac here was involved in one of them. I'd like to just ask, could you break down like the name, what your role is, who's basically making it, all of that basic spiel?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough to be considered for one of the lead roles in Jacob Burnham and Dylan Hanson's Burn Through the Dark. And it's not just them. It's Jillian Madden, Cole, Mia French, that whole big group. It was their Prod 6 film. I was lucky enough to work with them during the summer, actually, on a feature called First Moves, which is not out yet. We're not done filming that either, but that's going to be really fun. But basically, on Burn Through the Dark, I play a fisherman named Hutch, who is trapped in an alternate reality with two other men, and they figure out a way to get out, but the catch is only one of them can get out. And so the whole movie is basically about, like, what would you do to be the one who gets out?
Right. Yeah, no, I remember reading the plot line because I've been following a lot of these films on Instagram, and very recently that plot sort of got released, and I remember reading that. I was like, that's a cool plot.
I haven't known how much I'm able to talk about the plot, but since they put out the synopsis, like, yesterday, I feel more open to talking about it.
Yeah, no, and we don't have to go any further than that. If you don't want to spoil anything, you don't have to, but
It's really cool. I don't want to spoil much.
Yeah, no, it sounds really cool. I mean, I'm sure it was a fun experience.
Oh, it was the most fun set I've ever been on. I've been on 3 now because I was on 1 yesterday.
Right.
But it was just an incredible delight. The funniest part is that given the circumstances, you would think it wouldn't be a fun set.
Right.
Because we were out in the woods in Renton for 3 or 4 weekends in a row.
Whoa.
Every weekend overnight to film this. It got real cold.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like it would be fun at all, but I'm sure it would be fun. And I kind of want to, we will actually get into some of the basics of how being on a film set is fun, but I do want to ask, before we get into all of that, so I guess the big first question is, you said that you worked with these people on a project over the summer. I've seen some of your stuff on Instagram talking about how you've been basically making a movie with your friends. Like, are you friends with this group of people specifically? Like,
yeah, I mean, me and Dylan and Jacob specifically are really good friends.
Right.
I met Dylan Hanson.
Right.
In Washington, D.C. in 2022 when we got sent there as a part of the Cebu Student Media for the SPJ conference in D.C. And me and him were roommates, and that's where we kind of hit it off. I got to read the first draft of First Moves, And I was like, wow, man, this is really cool. I'd love to be a part of it in any capacity. And then come the summer when he's starting to put up auditions so that way they can get the ball rolling, he asked me to come audition. And I do, and I got the part. And we worked together over the summer. And I got to work with that whole production crew of Mia and Cole and Tyler and Michael. And that, I guess that goodwill that I built carried over to when they started doing rollout for Burn Through the Dark and started to get pre-production on that rolling, and they were looking for casting, and they came to me and they asked me to audition for Hutch, and I auditioned for both parts, and they decided that they wanted me for Hutch and Tyler for Murphy.
Okay, right. Isn't there 3 main characters? Or?
So from my perspective, there are 2 main characters and a main villain.
Oh, okay.
And the main villain is played by Dylan's dad, Douglas.
Ooh, okay.
Who I worked on first moves with in one scene, and he was a delight there, and it was a very funny scene. And so making the transition to his character, working with him while he's doing his character in Burn Through the Dark was very funny, because he's very scary in this movie. And I was talking to Lindsay yesterday, and she said, yeah, Doug looks scary in the scene that we just saw. And I was like, imagine how I felt being on the other end of it in the moment.
Right, like it's the equivalent of Adam Sandler chasing you down with a machete or something like that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's the exact feel of like, this is a comedic person that's now just trying to essentially kill me in some capacity, and I have to deal with that both as an actor and as a character, putting myself in those shoes. Like that's a crazy amount of whiplash you'd probably get from doing something like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you did answer the other 2 questions that were kind of pronged with it, which is like how were you casted, what the process looked like. You said that you wanted to go for the 2 characters, Hutch and what was his name?
Murphy.
Murphy, but you ended up being put in this Hutch, and that's really cool. I guess I love it when in interviews you tend to like sometimes answer questions you already had like during
I'm
the process.
sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, it's fine. I'm saying that as a really good thing, though. When that means you know the interview's going good. That means you know it's going good and you're not messing up because you're really tired. So I guess my next question is, I think you mentioned it kind of briefly earlier, but the film that you guys have been working on over the summer hasn't finished filming yet. And has Burn Through the Dark wrapped on shooting yet?
Yes, Burn Through the Dark is completely wrapped on filming, unless there are some pickups that they need to get done.
Right.
I'm going in this afternoon, to do some ADR. Okay. But I think after that, I'm wrapped for good.
Right, yeah, and it's probably better to make sure it is wrapped because the showcase is next Friday. But yes. I'm sure some people are definitely scrambling till the last minute. But
yeah, from what I've heard, the film, in terms of like the edit, is pretty much almost done.
Ooh.
I haven't seen any footage yet.
Right.
So people will come up to me in the halls and they'll be like, Isaac, I just saw the newest cut of Burn Through the Dark. It looked amazing. You guys really made something special. And I was like, every time I have to go, thanks. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a second of it. So I think at this point, I think I'm going to be watching it for the first time with everybody else next Friday.
That'll definitely be an experience. I think that does also answer the secondary part of the question, which is how do you feel that now that it's all over? Part of that is definitely, I haven't seen it yet. Is that definitely part of the emotional roller coaster?
It is, and I mean, I'm not upset that I haven't seen it yet,
right,
by any means. I mean, they've been working so hard. We're there in the Observer office super late at night on Mondays and Tuesdays, and for the last 4 weeks, I've seen that whole crew there just as late, putting in the work and getting it done. To kind of go back to the production for a little bit, talking about just the late nights and how long they felt in the moment. It's interesting how you do those types of things and you're out there for so long with those people making something to the point where once it's done, you feel really somber and almost bittersweet. And because even though you've been out there and you're exhausted and you finally wrapped and the sun's already back up, you're down to go back every other weekend and do it again.
Yeah, and I do want to get into the details of the people that made it that way, but we do have to take a quick break before we do jump into that. But thank you for being on, Isaac.
Of course.
Please do stick around, those of you listening in. We'll be back soon with Isaac Henson. 88.1 The Burg, your Music Central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. And I am joined here. We kind of had a surprise guest co host jump in. Walter, are you there in the back?
Hey, good morning.
Morning. Good
Morning.
morning, sir. Great to have you on, as normal. And we're also joined by our guest, Isaac Hinson, sorry.
It's okay.
You're good. Okay. So we've been talking about the film that you were involved in making recently, Burn Through the Dark, which will be premiering next Friday at our showcase for CW Film and Theater next Friday at 4 p.m. Please do swing by if you're able to. It'll be a free event, and you'll get to see some really cool films. But one of those cool films is Burn Through the Dark. One of the characters you play on it being Hutch, and again, I'm really tired, and I'm just trying to make sure I know how to words, and I don't think I do. But we were talking about the filming process and the sort of overall feelings you had after it was wrapped, and sort of the things about like, oh, I'm now done with it, but I want to keep going. I want to keep doing this with these people that I've come to love working with. And so I guess that leads nicely into the next question I had for you, which is, what was the easiest part of the process for you?
Oh man, can I say the drive there?
Yeah. Yes, you can, definitely.
I mean, for me, it was a weirdly physically intensive shoot.
Right.
I had to get it was mostly of my own accord, but I got thrown around a lot. I had to fall, get pushed over, get kicked over, get hit with a fake axe, like time and time again. I had a nasty bruise on my right shoulder for about 5 days after one of the shoots because I got hit with an axe there so many times.
Oh, boy.
That's not to say that it was an unsafe production. It was a very safe production. But I would say the easiest part of it was probably just collaborating with everybody, collaborating with Jacob and Dylan specifically, because Jacob was the director and Dylan was the DP. And they've always been very receptive to, and not just receptive, but encouraging of any ideas that I might have or things that I might want to do, whether that's like a camera angle that we could try or an improv line that I want to do. And so I would say that that's the easiest part, and it's also the most rewarding part.
Right. And as you're mentioning, in terms of getting hit with a fake axe and stuff like that, that leads nicely into the next question. Would you say that was the hardest part of the process, or do you have a different pick?
No, that was... I wouldn't say that the long hours were hard because you're spending it with such great people. So I would cite just the physical intensity as the hardest part.
Right.
I mean, I had to carry Tyler up a set of stairs at one point, which was very, very difficult. We found a way to fake that, thankfully, after very much trying to just get it done authentically. Yeah, like I said, the axe, the getting kicked into the dirt, I had to fall into the dirt at one point. Like I trip over a branch and I have to create an authentic fall. And we eventually decided that it would just look better if I got pushed over while I was already on my knees. And so we had Grayson Bayer push me from the back, and I just land face first in the dirt. And you can, from what I've heard, like I said, I haven't seen the footage, but from what I've heard, you can very much hear like a big thump when I hit the ground.
I can imagine it, honestly. I can just imagine this. Like, it sounds like a very... This sounds like a very physically demanding film, and I only know the basic process of it, but I'm guessing part of this comes from the title Burn Through the Dark and them being trapped in this like alternate reality where they're trying to avoid monsters and stuff like that with a flashlight or something like that. I guess what I'm trying to ask is the reason that you're falling over all the time because it's super dark in this place? Like, it's burning through the dark? Is that the reason?
I mean, not necessarily. That is funny. Definitely one of the times that I fall over is probably because I can't see this branch.
Right.
I trip over the branch. But a lot of it comes from just like you're fighting for your life.
Right.
In this situation. And that requires you to sometimes get physical or sometimes get violent, whether that is with a monster or with another person that you're there trapped with.
Right. Yeah, no, Yeah, and that makes sense to me. It's just something that popped in my head because I know it's kind of focused around it's focused around like the darkness around it because it's such a based around horror thing. But at least I think it is.
No, it definitely is. I mean, when we started pre-production, I asked Jacob if there were any movies that I should watch to kind of get in the mood, and he pretty much told me 2 movies. He told me to watch The Thing, and to watch The Lighthouse.
Oh yeah. Have you seen The White House?
Yeah.
Lighthouse? Yeah.
That's the one that's black and white.
Yep.
With what's his face in it?
Yeah, Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe,
Willem
yeah.
Dafoe and Robbie Pattinson.
Yeah.
Yes, I reviewed that movie a couple weeks ago. Actually,
Really?
Yeah, I love that movie.
I do too. I think it's incredible. I will also take any excuse to rewatch The Thing.
Yep.
That's probably one of my 5 favorite movies ever.
Oh yeah, I personally my short version of my version of The Thing is that I think it's a very good movie. It's just not the same as a lot of the other John Carpenter stuff, but it is a very good movie. Like I absolutely understand people loving it. It's just that like John Carpenter didn't write it, so me as a purist just doesn't love it as much as most people. But
That makes sense. I didn't know he didn't write it.
Right.
I guess it is based off of older material.
it's based off of a book, I believe. So he didn't write the screenplay for it like he did with some of his other big things like They Live, but that's completely different. Let's not get, I don't want to get too sidetracked with it. But The Lighthouse specifically, that stands out to me because that definitely paints a picture for what the movie's going to be like, Burn Through the Dark, because I have heard from some people that this is kind of a more influenced by German expressionism and is it filmed in black and white, I guess is my question.
Yes.
Okay.
Sweet.
Again, I don't want, what?
That's kind of cool.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It very much is. Black and white is such a fun concept to kind of play around with in movies, especially because it's not just like, oh, you apply a filter to make everything black and white. Good people who know how to use black and white, and specifically The Lighthouse, they know how to adjust the red, green, and blue color balances to make each scene still stand out and make it play with color, even though it's just monochrome. But I'm sure that they're doing something very similar if they're doing it right. From what it sounds like, they definitely know how to do it right.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't the first time that they filmed in black and white, I know, because First Moves, the film that we made over the summer, is also in black and white.
Okay.
So this is something that they're used to, they're tenured in.
It's part of their style, part
Yeah.
of their toolkit as filmmakers, so they
Yes.
know how to use it.
Yeah, it's definitely in their utility belt to just be able to film competently in black and white.
Right.
And I think it looks amazing. Like whenever we would finish a scene, if I was involved, I would always go behind the camera just to see what it looks like because I would love to direct at some point.
Right.
They've all talked to me and said that if I ever wanted to direct something, that they would all be game to help out. So I've just kind of, when I've been on set, I've tried to absorb everything I can that I can learn, and part of that does involve going behind the camera.
Yeah.
But the black and white looks amazing, and
Yeah.
even from, I went over to their apartment before we started filming, and I watched the previs that they made earlier this year, and even that just looked incredible, and I was sold from the moment I saw that. I was like, this is going to be so special and so cool, and I would love to be a part of it.
Oh yeah, and to again draw parallels, that's very similar to what The Lighthouse was for Rob Pattinson, and seeing Robert Eggers' vision and just seeing the way it was written and then seeing it be made. There's good parallels there, and I think it's really cool that you got involved in something like that, honestly.
Yeah, and the reason that it is in black and white is they actually have a lore reason. Is that like when you when you're in this alternate dimension, there's no light. Like the light hurts the world, the light hurts the monsters there, and so it's just all dark all the time.
Right.
And so my character, he has this big rifle, but it doesn't shoot anything. It's like a big flashlight.
Ooh, okay. So it's kind of like a laser gun, but it's got a flashlight in it. It's,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Cole made this really, really cool prop out of stuff that he works at Ace Hardware.
Right.
And so he just got a bunch of stuff from there and put it together, and it's super, super cool. This isn't visual, but I could pull up a photo of it if you wanted.
I mean,
reference.
we can totally look at it after while we're in the break because
Okay.
I'd really like to see this.
Yeah.
But it is not visual, and our audience can't see it, so we might as well not
Sure.
deter them. What?
That sounds really cool.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no. I saw you smiling, Walter, when you were like, "There's a lore reason." It's for the lore, man. It's
Yeah.
for the lore.
Yeah, I like things that have like really complicated lore. So like,
Right.
I don't know. So you could talk about them later, and you could have like arguments with people about it.
Right.
They've
Yeah.
really thought out the lore
Yeah.
of this whole thing. Like they've thought out like what each of our characters' lives were like before we got there,
Ooh.
what happens after the movie. Like I think that Jacob said that they want to make a comic about it at some point, like a prequel
Wow.
comic book. We were talking about making like a board game. Like it's really really cool what they're doing.
Nuts.
And
Yeah.
Yeah. No. That sounds right up your alley, Walter. I'll say.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. No. That does sound really odd. Like I don't know. I didn't think it was possible for me to get more excited for this by doing this interview. I was proven demonstrably wrong. Like this sounds all so very cool. But I do actually want to ask, because we've been talking about him so much. So Jacobs is a director, and I would normally ask, and you have touched on it a little bit, so it might be treading some old ground, but I normally would ask a kind of stuck-up question from someone who watches a lot of movies and reads a lot of trivia about the directors and stuff like that and wants to be a director himself as well. I'd normally ask you, oh, how did the director contribute to your role? And that's a super annoying question, and I'm sure a lot of actors would get because it's overshadowing the actor. So instead, I'm going to ask you, what was your relationship like with the director? How did you contribute to his sort of vision, and how did he contribute to your performance?
So Jacob, on top of directing, he also, I believe, was the primary writer of the script as well. They all contributed, but I think that this, the basic idea came from Jacob, and it was something that he thought of a couple of years ago. And just on set, like, I came in to my audition guns blazing, really trying to go full ham with the part. I came in and I did a southern accent, and Jacob was even then he was like, I really really love the southern accent, but we can't do it. He's from Washington, so he's always been receptive to my ideas, and one of the things that he is really great at curating on a set is an openness and just making you feel like any of the ideas that you have are able to be heard, as well as like he just has faith in his crew to get things done
Right.
without too much interference on his part. And part of that is because the crew that we were with is so talented, but also part of it is just because of the trust that he's built up with them. That core has been working together for years now.
Right.
They know their ins and outs. It's like from the quality of the product, at least from what I've heard people talking about, you wouldn't imagine that the set is so, not to say casual, but it just like it flows so swimmingly, and it's like just like watching waves come up on the beach, and like it's incredible, just their workflow and their process. And my relationship specifically with him was like he was just always, as I've said, like open to listening to anything that I wanted to talk about. And yeah.
Yeah, no, that does sound really nice. I mean, sometimes with filming, it can get difficult, and I think it's better to have a good relationship with your team and make sure that you're still working together, even when those times tend to get tough.
Yeah, and even when we would talk about what we wanted to do with the character for the next scene and how he wanted me to go about it, like even all of the ideas that he has were amazing, and I'm just happy to bring them to life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And he specifically is really great at telling me like what the character is specifically feeling and painting a picture of the scene so that way I can adequately, perform. And it's just like we filmed largely out of order. Like we filmed I'm not going to spoil what happens, but we
Right.
filmed one of my pivotal scenes pretty early on in the shoot. And it was very much towards the end of the movie. and he did an amazing job of painting the picture of like, okay, this is what's most recently happened. This is how you're feeling. This is your emotional state.
Right.
And he would like, I would just ask him like, okay, so you think I should like act like this, think about this while I'm doing it? And he was just very receptive and he just gave great advice the whole time.
Right. Yeah. And that's such a normal thing when filming, like filming it out of order. People do it all the time, and so to know that you have a director who's willing to tell you, hey, here's what it's been like, and then to have you go, oh, do I feel like this? Do I act like this? Do I think about this? Like that's the essential way that I think an actor and a director should work together, most likely.
And he always made a lot of time for rehearsal.
Right.
Like, we rehearsed during the week, and we would get to set, and while everybody else was, putting things up and getting the set ready, he would always take me and Tyler, and when he was on set, Doug, like we would just go aside and we would rehearse for like an hour and go over the lines and play with delivery, play with dynamic. We would all shoot out like different improv lines that we wanted to throw in there, because at the end of the day, we were all just trying to be, at least me, I was trying to be as, I guess, menacing as possible with my
Right.
character, especially in the second half of the film. And that's something, I'm not a very menacing person at all, and so that was really fun for me to play with.
Right.
And every time that we would do a scene, I would be like, okay, Jacob, but wouldn't it be so much scarier if he said this instead? And he would always go, yes, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no. I don't know how much Walter can attest to this, but we've been filming recently.
Yeah.
And you can be honest with me. I try to ask your opinion on things like that. And I try to get your input, and sometimes you offer a crazy idea, and I totally go with it. Like, I can't remember the exact things, but we've worked together on stuff like this.
Yeah. I know, like, a lot of it is like you come up with the idea in like the storyboard and whatever, and then when we actually go to do that, we're like, oh, that is impossible to do with the resources we are given. So we just kind of have to like make something up there on the spot, and then a lot of times that'll come out better than what we originally envisioned. Like, I remember yesterday when we were filming, there was a scene, I think it was like the clock scene or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, we couldn't do it originally because I just didn't have a whole lot of stuff in my dorm. So we just kind of winged it. And then you're like, oh, that came out awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that on-the-fly filmmaking,
Yeah.
right? That's what Francis Ford does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Not everybody's a Fincher.
Yeah, no.
Their meticulousness.
I mean, I don't want to get too off track, so I want to ask, were there any moments like that on Burn Through the Dark? Was that kind of like, with you suggesting, like, would it be better if it was said like this? Is that kind of in the same vein as doing it on the fly almost, or?
Well, they do a really fantastic job at being prepared. Like,
Right.
every single set that I came to, they had the full shot list ready to go. They had each sides. They've been storyboarding for months and months now. They do different versions of storyboards. Like, they'll do drawings, and then they'll set it up with action figures, and then they'll kind of combine the two. And I wouldn't... Let me think about this for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good. It's a very different thing, just because I think the reason that we're more accustomed to doing on-the-fly stuff is because I'm only in production one, and we're not doing any like big projects like this. For bigger projects like this, specifically with Burn Through the Dark being possibly Jacob and his crew's like capstone film, their big thing, it makes sense that they would put a bunch of preparation into it. It's kind of a process of figuring out, okay, here's how I want it to look, here's how I want it to come out, here's how I'm going to express myself.
Yeah, most of the on-the-fly happening on the set was just like, okay, we didn't think about that if we shot this then now, we should just shoot this other shot next instead of, like,
Right.
it's like 10 shots down on the shot list. Like, well, we already kind of have something similar set up. We can just move the camera over slightly, get it done, bing, bang, boom.
Right.
That way we have one less shot to do.
Yeah. So it's basically a process of like, I think we also ran into this. It was like, are we gonna do it this way since we already have it here, or are we going to move the camera and start all over again? Like, it makes more sense to just move the camera and figure it out as we go rather than come back all the way. Like, efficiency, essentially.
That's exactly what it is that,
Ow.
oh,
I'm good. I'm good. Keep ow.
That's exactly what it is, though, is that they're very efficient filmmakers, especially when we're out there so late. And I'm sure he had on his conscience the whole time, like, we need to get out of here, like, as quickly as possible. We can't be here until 6:30 in the morning. And so when you're thinking like that, you're thinking about ways to not necessarily cut down on time, but ways to get things done efficiently. And that's something that's soaked through on other productions too. Like on First Moves, there was a day where we just got straight up kicked out of a filming location.
Ooh.
And within 5 minutes, Dylan and Jacob had a new plan and a new spot that we could go film and a way to get it done that day instead of delaying the shot.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely, because it took a second to answer it, I'll say it right now. You definitely answered that question perfectly. Like that, the seconds you took to think about it. Very good. I'm very good at speaking this early in the morning. I'm so sorry. Apologies for all of my flubs and waffles. But
I hope I'm doing good. I'm a writer. I'm not a talker.
We'll get into the writing thing. Don't worry. We'll ask questions right up your alley very soon. And I'm very excited to talk about that. But you are doing great so far. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Trust me. I mean, and it's great to have you on board with us, Walter.
Yeah.
Definitely. What am I trying to say? I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to waffle it. We're going to take a break.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll still be doing some interviews, so stick around for that. 88.1 The Burg, your music central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends, the show where we talk about movies in comparison to What to Watch Wednesdays, where I talk about movies again. But today is still very special because I have two guests on I was about to say with me today. I've got Walter, my recurring co-host, and I've got a guest, Isaac. Would you guys like to say hello? I guess.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Happy past 10 a.m. now.
Yes, past 10 a.m. The show goes until 11 if we're able to make it, and we're able to make it since we've got so many people, so might as well.
Yeah.
So we've been talking with Isaac about the film you've been making with some people in Production 6 here at CWU, that being Burn Through the Dark. From what you've described, it sounds like a very cool experience, and I'm 10 times more excited to see it than I originally was, so that's been a very cool side effect of this whole thing. What?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's a really, really cool short.
Right.
I think all of the Prod 6 movies this year look incredible.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
It's going to be a really, really cool showcase.
I'm very excited for it. Like, the three big ones that I'm excited for are Burn Through the Dark, just because I've seen it around, and now talking to you, I'm even more excited. I Belong to the Stars is a one that has like a dedicated Instagram account that I've been following along with, and I just like the fact that they have a cat on set. And then the big one that I've been seeing all over the place because I follow their Instagram accounts and stuff like that has been Damage Control.
Yes.
That one I'm very excited for as well, like just because I've seen so much of it. It's like so much about it that it's kind of like through proxy advertising.
They've done a fantastic job on social media with Damage Control.
Oh yeah.
And that makes sense. I mean, Andy Rios is the director of that movie.
Yeah.
And he's worked at Hype for a while, so he
Ooh,
understands like the ins and outs of like social media marketing and that type of stuff. And I mean, there are so many talented people on that set and on the set of I Belong with the Stars. I'm really excited for Tin Man Blues also.
Ooh.
I think that one looks really cool. It looks very like Raging Bull-esque.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
We've got another, so it's another one that's filmed in black and white?
Yeah, I think so.
Ooh,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure it's filmed black and white. We saw the posters for 3 of them yesterday. Like, they got the big printout, one-sheet posters. They got the Tin Man Blues one, the Burn Through the Dark one, and the Damage Control one. And they all looked so cool. But the Tin Man Blues poster was really, really amazing.
I have seen the poster for Damage Control. I like it's got this kind of like chromatic aberration sort of thing with this guy looking at the camera, and then the Burn Through the Dark one is just like a almost torn up piece of paper from the way it looked. Almost.
It's actually apparently it's some sort of warped image of one of the monsters
Ooh,
in our film.
Okay. Well, that doesn't necessarily move nicely into the next question, but I want to ask this question so badly because we ended off last break with you saying that you're a writer, not necessarily a talker, and I want to break that down a little bit more. So I know that you're the editor-in-chief of The Observer, and that's a really cool thing. The Observer is a newspaper on campus. Wow.
Here, I could do it for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
We're a student-ran, student-written, student-edited, student-designed, and student-photographed newspaper. So
Ooh.
on campus, we run once a week.
Yeah.
We all pour our hearts out each week into it.
Yeah. No, I read an article specifically related to the film program that you guys did a couple weeks ago about.
I wrote that one.
Yeah, no, that one was a good one. That really captured our state of the film program and how we still love it, but it has its flaws here and there. But it's still fun to talk about the people who are behind the program and working on these big projects. So I don't want to go too much into the negativity when we want to focus on the positivity. From that extension, you being a writer, you're writing articles all the time. You know what sounds good in the English language. Hopefully, at least that's
I think so.
cool. And one of the big things about working on a movie is you have a script. Obviously, you have a written thing that shows you exactly what you're going to be doing or tells you what you're going to be saying or doing. And most of the time, an actor is not exactly a writer. Sometimes that changes up, but it's not like by default you're a writer because you're an actor. Like, only someone like Jack Nicholson can really make the claim that he's a good writer, and it's Jack Nicholson. Like, he can make claims about basically anything.
Yeah, like the GOAT. You know?
Yeah,
So-
who's going to argue with Jack Nicholson when he says he's a good writer? I'm not going to, and I have proof of it. But you, again, even though it's not by default, you work for The Observer, so you totally have writing experience. You're definitely a writer. And from that perspective, I guess I want to ask a lot of questions about the writing. The first one being, how does the script influence your performance as a character?
Well, it's really interesting because when I read the script, I'm looking at it and I'm just trying to think of ways to when I'm trying to think of ways to bring the character to life, I'm always asking Jacob, like, okay, so is he angry here or is he sad? Because my character doesn't really feel happiness at all. None of them do, but my character especially is
Right.
very melancholic, very put your head down and I need to get the job done and get out of here. And so reading the script, it's very much like my character is very straightforward and not necessarily hiding his feelings at all about anything. And just reading that really, sorry, I'm so, like I said, I'm used to giving the questions.
Yeah,
so
no.
eventually coming up with the answers gets a little tricky. I mean, the script is amazing, and they do such a great job of providing background to the characters at the beginning of the script, and even when you're reading it, the body text before the dialogue does a really great job of encapsulating what the character is feeling in the moment, and so when I do end up talking to Jacob, at that point, it's just about delivery.
Right.
So the script was a really great assist, and it's a great script, and I learned a lot reading the script because, like you said, I'm a writer, but I'm not a screenwriter.
Yeah.
And I would like to be. I've been writing my own script for about 6 months now.
I can relate
And
to that.
so, yeah. And so reading it, I'm picking up on things like, okay, so theirs is a little more straightforward, but it makes me feel better about my own because I'm writing mine almost as kind of a book. In the sense, when I am writing the body text, I'm getting very much in depth about specific moments from the character's past that could be influencing what's happening on screen, even though it's not necessarily going to make it into the movie. It's just stuff that the only people who would know it are the people reading the script and the people performing. But that just kind of, sorry, I saw somebody I know walk past the window.
You're good.
It made me feel good about the way that I write, and also kind of like we were talking about earlier, they're so into the lore
Right.
of what they've made. You can tell they care so much about this movie, that there's just so much stuff that they've added on that you're never ever going to see in the final product.
Right.
But having all of that extra substance really deepens the script and makes it easier to understand what's going on and why.
Right. Yeah, and that does actually lead nicely into the next question, which is, I guess, so you've said it's a good script. That answers that question. Would you, if you were given the script and it was kind of bad, would you say that make your performance worse, or would you say the quality of the script being so good is what makes your performance good?
That's a good question. I think the script being so great definitely helped, especially because I wasn't necessarily confident in my ability at all when we were filming First Moves. And so to come back and read the new script, I read it and I was like, okay, I definitely know that I can do this, right?
Yeah.
And it was just, I would say that the script being so good definitely helped. I mean, if it was a bad script, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
You know, like I wouldn't understand like why is my character doing this.
Yeah.
And that's what is really informative to me, is like if I can understand why my character is doing what he is doing thoroughly, it's going to make my performance better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess that also brings up a minor question. Like, if just from the perspective of also being a screenwriter, I've also been working on a screenplay myself, and it's sometimes hard to figure out how to convey directly to the audience why your character is doing what he's doing in any given moment, or she's doing in any given moment. But sometimes I don't include that level of detail just because it's sometimes, to me at least, from my perspective, not to say that the way you'd probably approach it is wrong. It's just like, I view extra stuff like background and stuff like that as dead weight for some reason, which I tend to cut out so that I can make it really stripped back and really straightforward. But I guess to kind of prevent waffling too much, if you were given even the smallest amount of a character's backstory, or an understanding of even the smallest amount of why they're doing what they're doing, just even down to like, why are they doing what they're doing, and you get like a one sentence answer, would that be better than absolutely nothing?
I guess that would be better than absolutely nothing, but if I did get that, then it's at their own liberty that I'd kind of do what I want with it.
Yeah,
You
that's fair. Yeah, no, I get you. I get you. No, that's a good answer. No, I mean, like, part of it is just like understanding how you bring a character to life, and part of it is knowing why they're doing what they're doing. Like, you want to know what their motivators are, what their reasons for their actions really are, and so if you don't get that, what are you supposed to act as?
Well, especially for a script like Burn Through the Dark, which is so... First Moves was a movie very much set in reality, and pretty much every scene in that movie was either directly inspired by something that happened to Dylan or happened to somebody that he knew. And so during that process, I was always able to just ask, okay, well, what were you feeling like during this moment?
Ooh, yeah.
How can I bring this to life from your memory? And with Burn Through the Dark, it's completely fictional. And it's so fantastical, like it's a scenario that nobody in reality will likely ever be in, right? I don't imagine that
Hopefully
anybody
not.
we know is ever going to get trapped in an alternate dimension anytime soon.
Hey, Walter, are you
Yeah.
planning on going to that cruise anytime soon when you go there?
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And so when it is something so big like that, I think it's more important. I think it's even more important for something like that, or like, it kind of makes me think about working on, I mean, obviously these productions are nowhere near the same size or anything like that, but it reminds me of what I would imagine working on like an MCU movie would feel like,
Right.
and kind of why they've been kind of bad recently is because like when you're making stuff that's so fantastical and so based in fiction, you really need to be able to understand what humanizes your character,
Yeah.
and why they're doing this, even in such a, I keep saying the word fantastical, but like in a realm like that, because I've never been in an alternate dimension.
Yeah.
I've never been in an Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
So I need to be able to have enough context from the script and the director to have a good idea of what to do with the character. And I think that's what's most important, and that's why the film, I think, is going to be so successful, is because they really thought out, like, what would somebody with this motivation really do in a situation like this?
Yeah, and that's what makes it a good script, is because they put so much effort into that kind of thing. I guess is what you're saying. So that also answers some other questions that I've had. That directly answers the next question I had, which is like, would you rather have a script that defines the character you're playing, or would you have one that's more open-ended, allowing you to play the character in the way you want? Like, from what you've basically said, you've answered it basically perfectly.
I mean, I would just say if it's something that I know and something that I can draw real life experience from, that I don't necessarily need a bunch of background in the character. But as I was saying, if it is something that I've never done before, or something that is so out of this world, direction from the script and the director definitely helps.
Yeah, no, and I get that.
That gives me a question. You're talking about the movie you're working on before this, about how it was based off of like real events that happen and real like scenarios your director was put in. Did this movie, like, it sounds pretty crazy. Like, what specific event like inspired you guys to be like, ooh, I'm gonna do this? Or if there was.
What do you mean?
Like, do you have like a specific something, like you can, like, what? How did you come up with this idea?
Well, I wasn't for Burn Through the Dark.
Yeah,
I wasn't involved in the creative process at all.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
they came up with the script and they came to me, but I essentially I can kind of answer the question for them, or at least I'll try to. So Dylan, Jacob, if I mess this up, sorry. But both of them are such big genre fans. Like, they're big fans of horror, of like old practical effects, of thrillers, just any sort of genre fare.
Yeah.
And I think that's. We were kind of talking earlier about Mad Max, and how you can tell that Fury Road was the movie that George Miller really just wanted to make the whole time.
Yeah.
And every single Mad Max movie before it was just, he was able to get one step closer. And I feel like Burn Through the Dark is very much like, this is the type of movie that they've been wanting to make for 2-3 years now.
Yeah.
And they finally have the skill and the ability and the rapport to be able to make something like that. And I think that they were just happy to be able to bring it to life finally. And like I said, Jacob has been working, he had this idea like a year ago. And I just think the want to do something so different than everybody else, but that was also uniquely theirs, was really motivating to them.
Yeah, so I guess that does answer your question, Walter, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a specific specific event. I just waffled so incredibly hard. I'm so sorry. It wasn't one specific event, but that's the kind of thing you want when you're making a movie. You want it to be a passion project. You want it to be something, a story that the filmmaker's been wanting to tell for such a long time, that at this point they're like, I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I know exactly what I want from it. I know what I want it to be, and I want to bring it to life in this way.
And I also think that they wear their influences on their sleeves too. Like, we talked about how this movie was very much directly inspired by The Thing and The Lighthouse, and you can see that in the final product.
Right.
And with First Moves, like, very much inspired by, like, Annie Hall, the old Woody Allen movies, the Before Sunset, Sunrise, Midnight movies.
Right.
And you can just tell where their influences come from and where their inspirations come from, but also they're able to put such a unique twist on it and make it their own that it's really special.
Yeah. I guess that does, well, okay. I do have a very...
I'm cool to talk about any part of this.
Okay.
You can wing questions. I'm good to go till 11.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I got a kind of tangential question. I can speak today.
Yeah.
So most film nerds I know, they have what I'd like to call film nerd brain rot, where through like all through high school I took film classes, but it allows me to like look at movies with like a more I'm trying to like analytical lens and be like, oh, I like how they did that scene, or I like how they made that prop work, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like any specific movies you like? You would have say like your aha moment be like you view film as like art?
Yeah, I have two. I have two for you. One, which I assume we'll talk about later if we get to the Giselle portion of this,
Hopefully.
was La La Land. I saw that movie winter break of 2016. I walked like 2 miles in the snow to go and see that movie because we couldn't drive. There was a snowstorm in Portland. And so I walked 2 miles with my stepmother to go see that movie, and I came out and I was like, I had no idea that you can make movies like this. Because up until that point, I had very much just been like, I love the MCU, I love Star Wars, you know what I mean? And so seeing a movie like that was like, whoa, I've never seen anything like that before, let alone in a movie theater, and I've never been taken away or been so invested in characters before. And then the second one, which has really, every time I've rewatched this movie, I just find something new, a new shot that he does, a new character moment that I pick up on, a new line, and that's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh boy.
That is my favorite movie. And there's just so much in there that you can really sink your teeth into, and you look at it and you're like, wow, this is just made so professionally. You can just tell that this is something he's thought about, he's had on his mind for a long time. And watching that, especially on repeat viewing, it's like you said, the aha.
Yeah.
Where it's like, seeing something like this on this level in the modern Hollywood juggernaut conjunction, it's just really inspiring almost.
Right.
I don't know what you guys think about that movie.
I haven't seen it.
Really?
Me neither.
I've watched Quentin Tarantino movies, and being a massive film nerd myself, I gotta say I have some opinions on his style. I don't hate it at all, but it's definitely not for me.
Well, that's the thing about Hollywood, though, is that it's easily his most mature movie.
Okay.
And it's very much his most somber and emotionally intelligent movie as well.
I've heard so many times that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the most different one. Like, it's the one that, like, if you don't like Quentin Tarantino, you might actually like it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's definitely not the same level of zeitgeist-y as Pulp Fiction or something like that, or the most mainstream one. But I don't know. I guess I've put it off sometimes. It's just,
I think you would really like it. It's the characters are so easily defined. Like, you can, the more you watch it, the more you're like, this, like, Rick Dalton's arc is just unraveling for me, just in front of me as I watch this again. Like, I'm
Right.
picking up new layers to it. Like, just each new scenes gain different sentimental value. Like, the end scene with him, the last time I watched it, really struck a chord because I'm like, what a perfect way to wrap up this guy's story.
Right.
I've never picked up on that before.
yeah, no, that's fair. I might consider it, but we did get a little off topic. That's totally fine. You did bring up that hopefully we get to the Damien Chazelle portion of this, and I do have only a couple other questions about Burn Through the Dark, but
I'm happy to answer any of them.
I think the big one that you have already answered is one of the big ones that I had was like, do you know how the film will turn out? Are you confident in it being well-rated entertaining? You've definitely answered like yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a real hit. From what I've heard, they've also been very open to like taking notes from their peers.
Right.
Like, obviously, like I told you, I haven't seen a second of this movie yet, so everything I've heard is secondhand. But I was being told that like they screened the rough cut and everybody was like, this is great, but the first 10 minutes really drag.
Right.
And so they got in the edit and they got to work, and then the next time I heard about it, they were like, they fixed the beginning. It's amazing.
Right.
And I don't know how long all of the other movies are, but from what I've been told, Burn Through the Dark is 36 minutes long.
Oh boy.
Which even on set, I was like, I think this will probably be like 20 minutes max, right? And so when I heard that, I was like, you guys are pulling my leg. There's no way this is 36 minutes long. And it definitely, from what I've been told, it is. And so I'm interested to see how that translates to the screen, because the script is only like 25 pages. And if you're doing a page per minute,
Yeah,
It's like
no,
about 25 minutes.
yeah, no. They've pulled an extra 11 minutes out of nowhere almost, but
I have no idea where, but I'm so excited to see what it is.
and yeah, no, I'm excited to see where it goes, honestly. Like I think the last way we can wrap this up nicely. The last question I want to ask you specifically before we jump into Giselle, because I do want to talk about him, is do you have like one unforgettable experience from this movie? Do you like you said this is like the best that you've been on. This is definitely a significant portion of the last couple months. Like this has been such a fun experience for you. If you could pick out like maybe one thing from this that you will carry with you for the rest of your life as a possible future filmmaker, could you pick one out?
Oh man. Like something I learned or like a memory that I have from set?
Either one.
Okay.
Like either one. And memory from set would probably be a lot more fun.
Okay.
But
Okay, this doesn't even really have to do with the movie. This was just something that happened on Okay, I can't tell you about the one that I want to talk about. So I'll talk about something else.
okay.
This is just something that happened on set as it was like 3 a.m. and we're all extremely delirious.
Right.
Our producer Mia was kind enough to make lunch every single day, whether that was sandwiches or making pizza herself, hot dogs, the works. One of these days, she made sandwiches, and me and Tyler Haig and Andy Rios went to where the cars were on our set to go and eat sandwiches, and because we weren't needed for that shot. And me and Andy, we both eat our sandwiches. Well, Andy doesn't eat his entire sandwich. Tyler gets his sandwich and doesn't eat it. And we're like, Tyler, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't eat mayonnaise. Something was wrong with his sandwich. Like there was mustard on it or something. And so Andy was like, okay, Tyler, well, you need to eat. Like we haven't eaten in 10 hours. And this is just going to sound so stupid, but Andy started trying to force feed Tyler his sandwich, and Tyler just started like throwing a fit and like being a big baby about eating this sandwich. Oh, the reason Tyler couldn't eat his sandwich was because his I love him, his stupid self dropped his sandwich like in the dirt.
Oh.
And so he couldn't eat it. And so Andy's like, okay, well, eat part of mine. He's like, no, there's mayonnaise on it. And we're like, Tyler, there's like hardly any mayonnaise on this sandwich. You're being ridiculous. And it just became this whole ordeal. It's not really that funny.
No, it's hilarious.
At the moment, it was really, really funny, and I'm definitely not doing it justice.
No, I was definitely just laughing at it. Just like, I think what makes it funny is just because he like dropped it in his own in the dirt, and now he's complaining that it has mayonnaise. Like that's funny.
Yeah. I mean, there were so many just working with those guys. Specifically, me and Andy and Tyler had a real hoot on that set. We were always cracking up and laughing, and it makes the long nights not feel so bad.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a really fun experience. But I do want to thank you for answering all these questions.
Yeah, of course.
I do want to move on to our next topic of the morning. We've only got so much time left, but we can definitely. I think we can talk about them.
Yeah.
If you guys are ready, once we come back from the break, we'll jump into La La Land and Whiplash, because I know you've mentioned you love La La Land, and Walter, you like Whiplash,
Yes.
to my knowledge.
Yeah,
so.
it's one of my top 5.
Yes.
Easily.
So we're going to have a real fun time.
Can't wait.
Yeah, stick around for after the break for that. 88.1 The Burg, your Music Central. Welcome back to What to Watch Weekends. My name is Nathan. I am joined by my co-host Walter and my guest Isaac. Welcome, you guys, to the last bit of the show. Say words, I guess.
Yeah. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello, hello. We're all very tired and we all know how to words this morning, but we're pushing through, and we have we have a good chunk of time to talk about some great stuff. We've been talking with Isaac about Burn Through the Dark, and it's been really fun and eye-opening to get your experience on all of that. And I do want to emphasize that attention, ladies and gentlemen, if you are able to, next Friday at 4 p.m. in the McConnell Theater, please do stop by to view the Production 6 final films of the CW film program. We will be showcasing them there. I'm planning on driving all the way back up here the day after I move out just to go and see it. So,
Wow.
high recommendation to come and see it. I'll be there. I'm sure Isaac will be there.
Yes, I will.
We'll have all the Production 6 students showcasing their films. It'll be a great time. Completely free event, by the way. If you're able to, high recommendation from that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be so many special films being showcased there, even beyond my own. I can't wait to see them all.
I can't either. I am so excited. We'll be bringing friends along the way while driving all the way back up here anyways. So I'm more than excited.
You're bringing people?
Oh yeah, I'm
Nice.
bringing extra people. We're gonna have like a rowdy group of people there.
I tried to invite my dad to come up, who I think he's listening right now. Hi,
yeah.
Dad.
Hello.
And he was like, "Yeah, I'll come up." And I was like, "Cool. By the way, I think it's 20 minutes long." And he was like, "I'm not driving 4 hours for 20 minutes." So, Dad, it is 36 minutes long. I don't know if that changes your mind.
I mean,
but
if he wants to, you can watch all the other ones. I've been asked like questions on how long it's gonna be. It's in total. It's 8 films, and not all of them are gonna be 20 minutes long or over 20 minutes. But Burn Through the Dark is gonna take up half the time already, or part of the time. So, I'm expecting to be there a little bit past 6. Like we're getting dinner before we leave. It's a bit of a day trip.
Definitely.
So. Just keeping that in mind.
From what I heard yesterday, it's projecting to be like 3.5 hours long.
Oh boy,
'Cause I don't even know, I don't know if there's like Q&As afterwards with the filmmakers or stuff like that.
that'd be
But
crazy.
I'd like to. I've enjoyed answering your questions.
Oh
I'd
yeah,
love to
no,
answer more.
it'd be crazy, but it'd definitely be worth it. But yeah, no, it's planning to be a day trip. It's going to be a whole thing. So just keeping that in mind.
Are you going?
Maybe.
You
Yeah,
should.
maybe. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, final this week is next week as
Yeah.
well. So if you're not able to make it, no harm. But if you're able to,
Yeah. I want to.
definitely.
I know.
Fair enough. Okay. With that out of the way, we will be jumping into a couple movies that I talked about on Wednesday. We can't talk about all 3 that I talked about, but we can talk about the 2 big ones. That being 2 movies written and directed by Damien Chazelle, the first of which being La La Land from 2016, available to rent, as Isaac brought up. It's one of your favorite movies, or...
Absolutely. I would say it's probably my second favorite movie.
Right, after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Just to kind of run over the quick plot of the thing, it is about 2 characters, that being the musician Sebastian, played by Ryan Gosling, and an aspiring actress, Mia, played by Emma Stone, as they fall in love in L.A. And I think it's funny that it's one of your favorite movies, just because I can think of only a couple movies that have directly embedded themselves into the cultural zeitgeist of movies as much as La La Land has, especially in the last 8 years that it's been out. A lot of the movies that are well known and well recognized have been around for a lot longer than that. And so and it's also usually you recognize them through parodies and stuff like that. La La Land is just kind of there. We've all seen the clip from it. We all know the tap dancing scene and the thing on the poster where they're kind of in crosses with each other. I've seen it in the AMC theater ads where they're like, "Oh, we go to the theater to watch a good movie," and then it just shows that scene from all.
Shout out Nicole Kidman.
Yeah. Oh, that is Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't want to say that's a good or a bad thing. It's really just an observation. It's one of those movies that you see a lot of before you end up watching it.
Well, it's really interesting. You were talking about how it's kind of entered the cultural zeitgeist in a real way that a lot of movies haven't in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I would say it's really interesting because the zeitgeist, for the most part, over the last 10 years has been largely dominated by sci-fi movies or comic book movies. And to see something that's... And not to say that there's no passion put into those movies, but to see something that's so easily, you can just tell that Chazelle has been thinking about that movie for a while, and he really wanted to make it. And just all of the love that was poured into it. And it's just so different from everything else that's really stuck around.
Yeah.
You know?
To put it in a nice way or a mean way, I don't want this to sound like a detractor, but it's kind of a basic, possibly sappy premise for a movie of two people falling in love in LA who are an actress and a musician. Like, from that basic one sentence description, it sounds sappy. Am I crazy for barking up that tree at all?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why it has resonated so heavily is because that is something that a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
Not necessarily I don't know if we're talking spoilers.
Yeah, we can.
I think anybody who's listening to this has seen La La Land.
Yeah, and it's weekend show. Like, it has spoilers, so go ahead.
Everybody can relate to meeting somebody that you are you're growing with, but you know that it's not going to last.
Yeah.
You know, and just that connection that you can have with somebody and the good that you could do for each other, even though you know that it's not necessarily going to work out in the end. And I think the ending of that movie is what really, really makes it stick around. It's because it's such a non-traditional ending.
Yeah.
And, you know, they don't end up together.
No, yeah. That's my favorite part of the movie for me. Like, that's the best part, because part of it is from me just being a cold-hearted person and not liking happy endings. Like, whoa, Disney ending where they all get everything figured out. But it makes more sense.
Well, and that's one of Chazelle's motifs.
Yeah.
He's not interested in happy endings at all.
Nope.
I mean, Whiplash, the ending to that movie is very, very, not disturbing, but it's sad.
Yes.
The ending to La La Land is very sad. The ending to First Man, which I think is incredibly underrated.
I haven't seen it yet. I just didn't have time to watch it.
You should really check it out. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
The ending to that movie is like, spoilers, he makes it to the moon. But the movie doesn't end there, and it goes back to Earth, and it's what is the emotional fallout of somebody dedicating that much time
Right.
just one thing. And that's another motif that he's really obsessed with, is obsession.
Yeah.
And what you will do for your craft, whether that's in First Man and being an astronaut, or Whiplash, being a musician, La La Land, being a musician or an actress. Like,
Yeah.
what will you sacrifice to be the best at your craft?
Yeah, yeah, and we can't really talk about it because of the time that we have, but Babylon is kind of along the lines. Have you seen Babylon?
Yeah, I love Babylon.
I
almost watched it last night, but I was going to start it way too late, and that's
Yeah.
a long movie.
Yep.
So
My overall opinion of Babylon is that people have described it as a movie that you either love or you hate. I fall somewhere in the middle, where I didn't relate to the story all that much, but I like the actors and I really like the music to it. And it stands out as, for some reason, I just didn't get anything emotionally out of it, but it does follow the motif of not ending happily. It's not a happy ending.
it's one that I've wanted to revisit, and not to get too TMI, but I saw that movie right after I went through a pretty bad breakup.
Right.
And so I went home for winter break, and I'm like, okay, new Damien Chazelle. This will save me. We're going to be so back when I get out of this movie.
Right.
And I go in, and I'm just I feel really lost, and whether that was part of my emotional state or I was just like, the movie wasn't what I was expecting. When I walked out, I was really disappointed.
Yeah.
And I felt so conflicted about it, I didn't even log it on Letterboxd.
Right.
Like, I've logged every movie I've watched since 2018 on that app.
Right.
And I just never logged it. And if you go on my profile, it shows I haven't, technically, if you went there, you would think I haven't watched it, because
Right.
it's not there. But I have. And the more I think about it, the more I really appreciate it. And it's something that I want to revisit really badly. I thought to myself, like, why haven't I gone back to that? And I think it's because I don't want to revisit that part of my life
Yeah.
necessarily,
Yeah, and that's fair.
but I want to.
I don't want to burst your bubble too much. Please understand that it comes from a personal place of having seen the movie. But I can tell you that there's at least a slight possibility that part of the reason you were disappointed in it is it's a kind of disappointing movie. After having seen Whiplash the day before, going into it and expecting it to be some underrated masterpiece that people just overlooked, on the other hand, just thinking, oh, it's not that good, and hearing the music from it, hearing Voodoo Mama, and thinking, oh, it's going to be such an awesome movie, it's going to really blow it out of the water, I walked away with practically nothing. And I didn't even have a bad breakup to go off of to make me feel nothing. Like, just keep that in mind. That was my personal experience with it. So it partially could be the movie itself. I, again, don't take pleasure
Sure.
in bursting the bubble. I just wanted to tell you that, like, that's what's my experience with
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
And it'd feel wrong to not let you know that.
Well, it's. Have you seen Boogie Nights?
I haven't yet, no.
Okay. It's very akin to Boogie Nights, especially the third act. And I had just watched that movie for the first time, and so I think that might also have played a part of it. So I'm
Right.
watching, I'm like, this is just Boogie Nights.
I saw it and I thought, this is just Singing in the Rain.
Interesting.
It from the perspective of it's about Hollywood when they get sound introduced to it. Like, that's legitimately the plot of Singing in the Rain, and they reference Singing in the Rain near the very end of the movie. I was like, and they have the song Singing in the Rain in it. Like, I can understand parallels to it, but it is kind of a movie that feels like it would be described as, this is just XYZ.
Well, it also feels like, to me at least, it's very much dealing with like the underbelly and the dark side of Hollywood, especially in that quote unquote golden age.
Yeah.
And when I watched it, I walked out thinking, does Damien Chazelle like regret making La La Land?
That was something that was weird about it, because La La Land is so focused on being so LA. It's so LA that it's such a contrast to go to Babylon. You go, La La Land is about a musician and an actress falling in love in LA and going to the Hollywood Hills parties and being all about chasing their dreams. And then you watch Babylon and you go, that isn't very pro LA. That's
It's
like
very much like an anti-LA movie.
yeah, it's like it's kind of a goofy contrast. And then in the middle of all that, you got Whiplash, which is very New York,
It is.
just so New York. We could talk about La La Land for so much longer, and I'm sure you. Do you have any like big things you really want to say about it?
I mean, I just think it's incredible. But
Yeah.
I would love to talk about Whiplash some.
Okay, so Walter, sir, are you ready?
Yeah, yeah.
I saw Whiplash on Sunday. Here, I'll just do
For the first time?
Yes, for the first time.
Dang.
Wow.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Whiplash 2014, available to watch on Amazon. This is about a college student by the name of Andrew Neiman, who is going to this fictional conservatory in New York for music called Schaefer, and he ends up in a class taught by Terrence Fletcher, this very ruthless and abusive music teacher, played by J.K. Simmons. I'll be honest. This movie, I should have emotionally prepared myself for going through something so intense. I wasn't. My arms did not stop tensing up for only, like, there was only about a combined 30 minutes throughout the entire hour and 45-minute movie where my arms were not tense. And that should really say something. Like, I was just constantly sitting there, just like, my muscles just won't stop tensing up and like staying where they are. Like, it's such an intense experience. And people had always told me, oh, you've got to watch Whiplash. You're going to love Whiplash. Like, it's such a good movie. When I watched it on Sunday, I was like, this lives up to all the hype surrounding it. Like, it's such a good movie to me. I can understand like why you'd love La La Land, but in my opinion, Whiplash is better.
I also love Whiplash, and I completely understand anybody who says that Whiplash is their favorite. I mean, for me, I think all of his movies are 5 out of 5s.
Right.
He's my favorite working filmmaker.
Yeah.
What do you love about Whiplash?
Well, as you said, it's one of those really tense movies, and it gives you anxiety when you watch it.
Yeah.
Like, it makes you feel in ways that like a lot of other movies don't really like make you feel. I know when I first saw it, I saw it by myself at my house, and I didn't get it at first. Up until about a year later, when I don't want to get too TMI, but I had kind of a really mean boss for this job that I liked, and then I was like, oh, now I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you kind of took the idea of mean instructors and
Yeah.
were like, oh, Fletcher. Okay.
Yeah.
I could see parallels with that.
That's another thing that Chazelle is really great at, is making the movies that he does. They're much more rewarding once you've lived more life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
once you've really like had a relationship that didn't work out, you can go to La La Land and it just resonates that much more. Or once you've had a bad boss or dedicated so much time to something and not felt rewarded, you can go to Whiplash and it just resonates that much harder.
Yeah. No, I think Whiplash only stuck out to me because, again, I've been doing screenwriting, and not to throw anybody under the bus, but one of the instructors here at Central is very much he directly, like he said, he loves the character of Fletcher, and he embodies the philosophy that Fletcher has. Sometimes he's not mean, he's not bad, he's not abusive at all. It's just that from Fletcher's perspective, he's pushing people to their absolute limit so that he can make them great. And that is one of the philosophies employed by one of our film teachers here at CWU. He's very much about pushing people to their absolute limit so that they can be the best they can. And because of that reason, when I watched Whiplash, I could see the parallels between the two of them. Also because he had us watch the short film version of Whiplash.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, I'll get into that in just a second.
Okay.
But he kind of embodies the philosophy that Fletcher is coming from a good place, but he goes a little extreme with it. I think the best and worst thing about Fletcher is that he has a good heart, kind of, not really.
I wouldn't say so.
No, but in his world,
Like his motives are for a good reason.
yes, in his world, he is the good guy and he is doing the right thing. In everybody else's, he is not, and he is doing the absolute worst thing he possibly can. But from his perspective, he's definitely the good guy, which makes him all that more intimidating and all that more anxiety-inducing, because from his perspective, he's doing the right thing. And that's just part of the genius of the whole thing. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree with that outlook at all.
No, definitely.
Yeah. In terms of the short film, I'll touch on it briefly. You guys remember during the beginning scene where Neiman first goes to the class, like it's after he shows up way too early, and then all the students file in, they play a bit of a song, then Fletcher yells at a kid for being out of tune, and then they have that interaction in the hallway where they talk about personal stuff, and then they come back in and Fletcher throws a chair at Andrew. That's the short film.
Okay.
That entire scene of about 17 minutes is the short film, and that happens about the 10-minute mark to the 27-minute mark in the movie, right? So keep in mind that basically means that Chazelle stapled on about another hour and a half to that short film to make the movie work. Now, of course,
That's why he's the GOAT.
yeah, no, he did have it written out before when the short film came out. When people approached him afterwards, when it won so many awards, he was like, "Yeah, I've got the plan right here. Like, I've got the script. You want to make it? Sure, let's do it." But you're right. That's why he's the GOAT. Like, he had the plan out there, and for that reason, it's just such a memorable movie.
Do you guys have a favorite line from Whiplash?
Yeah.
Before we
Do we all have the same line?
Well,
Maybe.
before we say what our favorite line is, can we agree that we can't say all the explicit details?
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Here, you go first, Walter.
So there was the scene when it was like, so the bigger guy playing, I think it was like a tuba or something,
Right.
and J.K. Simmons' character was yelling at him for being out of tune or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Are you going too slow? Or are you going too fast?" And he was like, "Keep playing till you figure it out." And then he's like, the kid's like in tears, and he's like, I don't know. And then he's like, "Then get out of here." And then Fletcher is like, "He was doing fine, but the fact he didn't know makes it even worse."
Yeah. No. That was like he was out of tune. That's during that
Yeah.
first scene. Yeah. No. That's definitely a good one. What about you?
My favorite line it's a lot of people's favorite, but I just love it so much. It's when Miles Teller's character like comes back to the band, and Fletcher has like given his part or his first chair to somebody else.
Right.
And they're getting heated, and the guy who's now in first chair says something, and Miles Teller turns around and is like, "F off, Johnny Utah, turn my pages."
Right.
That's my favorite line.
My favorite line, it's one that's kind of been used in a lot of memes, so this is the reason. But I do legitimately like it. If I was given the opportunity to audition for something, I'd legitimately use this line. I'd try to recreate J.K. Simmons' voice as best as I could. I'd yell. I'd wear like the tight black shirt and everything.
Can you do it first right now?
Let me try, but I can't swear.
Okay.
It's like the hardest. It's the most difficult one. So it's like, one more thing, Eugene. Let me see that. If I ever find one of these lying around again, I swear I will demolish you. Get out of my sight. That whole exchange.
That was a good JK.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. That's my favorite for sure. I'd yell that so loud, but I can't because we're on the radio. But yeah, no, that's my favorite. With that, unfortunately, lads, this is all we have time for because of a late start. But I do want to thank you guys both for being on. Thank you specifically, Isaac, for joining us.
Anytime.
This has been so much fun. Thank you, Walter, for co-hosting with me as always.
Yeah.
And thank you all for listening in. Again, please do attend next Friday's showcase. It's going to be so great. I'm so excited for it. And I'm sure you are as well, Isaac.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I cannot wait.
I cannot wait either. Thank you all for listening in. And this is the last What to Watch weekends of the quarter. So
Congratulations on a great show.
thank you. Thank you. I will be back next fall. All things hopefully going perfectly, which they never will because it's life. But we'll figure it out. Thank you all again, and see ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.